Today, we're bringing you a brand new Blue Bus Learning Bite, directly from the coaches at the Blue Bus. This is part of our ongoing series exploring conversations that matter. And today, we're looking at how our deep, biological needs quietly shape the interactions we have every single day. This explainer builds beautifully on our introduction to this topic. We'll be looking closely at how managing three primal drivers, certainty, status, and control, both for ourselves and for others, is really the secret to fostering truly constructive conversations. So let's dive right in and consider how we might connect more deeply with the people around us.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, the Blue Bus Foundations. Second, 3 hidden psychological drivers. Third, a leader's self-awareness. Fourth, navigating certainty, status, and control. And finally, the power of asking.
Let's start by looking back briefly to set a really strong foundation for today. What exactly transforms a standard, everyday chat into an interaction of real significance?
Well, as we learned in our introductory explainer, conversations that matter are those moments that hold genuine emotional resonance or have material consequence. They literally have the power to either strengthen or weaken our relationships. Sometimes these show up as really obvious, big F formal moments. Think of a structured performance review or announcing a major workplace change. But just as often, they arrive as totally unplanned little F moments. This might look like a child bidding for your attention when you walk through the door, a colleague casually asking for help, or that tense, awkward silence following an off-color joke. Even if an interaction isn't absolutely perfect, merely having the conversation sends a powerful signal to others that they are important.
Now think about the intersection between these two key concepts, being seen and being heard. True connection lies right at that intersection. Being seen is that external validation. It's when someone accepts us for who we are, making us think, they see me. But being heard, that goes so much deeper. It's a completely internal process. It's knowing that what we say or what we feel carries actual weight. Even if the other person doesn't totally agree with us, they intellectually understand and emotionally empathize, which makes us think, they get me.
To achieve that deep connection, it really matters which mindset we bring to the table. We often ask, which bus am I driving? At the Blue Bus, we look at 3 distinct styles. The Red Bus is all about asserting will. It operates in a very blunt tell mode, often completely ignoring emotional needs. The Green Bus is pretty much the opposite. It seeks to avoid conflict at all costs, creating this false harmony by evading uncomfortable truths. But the Blue Bus? This approach actively respects agency. It focuses on shared interests and finds a really constructive balance between genuine curiosity and respectful candor.
If the Blue Bus mindset is our ideal vehicle, what are the invisible forces beneath the surface that might steer us off course? The coaches at the Blue Bus point out that maintaining a sense of certainty, status, and control is absolutely critical to our emotional well-being. And here's the thing, these 3 psychological drivers are omnipresent. They are always at play. Whether you're having a deep face-to-face discussion in the boardroom, firing off a quick email, or navigating a busy Slack channel, these biological needs are quietly shaping the entire dynamic.
First, let's unpack certainty. The human brain has essentially evolved to be a giant prediction machine. We constantly rely on mental models to forecast what's going to happen next, and that saves our limited emotional energy. So, when what we experience out in the world doesn't match what our brain expects, we lose certainty. That cognitive dissonance breeds instant anxiety and causes us to second-guess everything. Next up is status. Now, this isn't just about who gets the corner office or a fancy title. Rather, it's our fundamental sense of knowing exactly where we belong socially. It's that warm feeling of being protected within the tribe. Biologically speaking, social rejection once meant exposure to violence and scarcity. It was life or death. Research actually suggests that our need for status might outweigh all of our other needs. When our status is threatened, our rational thinking just shuts down until we can find our way back to safety.
The third driver is control. This is our sense of agency and autonomy. When we feel in control, we're willing to take responsibility, explore new ideas, and experiment a bit. But if we sense someone is cutting across our autonomy, our physiological stress response can be strikingly similar to being physically constrained. We either want to lash out, escape the situation entirely, or withdraw into a state of learned helplessness.
Notice what happens when these needs are either met or threatened. When we gain certainty, status, and control, we feel clear-headed and ready to step up. We lean into problem solving. But when we feel threatened, we trigger a primal fight, flight, or freeze response. This is what the blue bus calls a red brain response. Our thinking narrows, our heart literally races, and our ability to take on any new information drops dramatically.
Understanding how these drivers affect others is absolutely crucial, but what about ourselves? Let's take a quick moment to look in the mirror.
Leaders are certainly not immune to the primal drives for certainty, status, and control. If we perceive a threat to our own needs, our natural, biological reaction might be to prove ourselves right or strongly assert our authority. That is exactly why asking, "Which bus am I driving?" is such a powerful tool for setting our intent before we engage. It invites us to just slow down. We might ask ourselves, how could failing to manage our own triggers inadvertently elevate our own need for certainty and control while completely overriding those very same needs in the people we're talking to?
So, the crucial question becomes, how might we actively choose to build these psychological pillars for others during conversations that matter, rather than accidentally tearing them down?
Let's look at certainty first. We might build certainty by offering clean, explicit information and choosing to directly confront uncomfortable truths. When outcomes aren't totally clear, which happens a lot, outlining a process or a time frame works absolute wonders. Conversely, how do we diminish certainty? Well, we do it when we offer vague details, present our personal opinions as hard facts, or dance around difficult topics that clearly need to be addressed.
When it comes to status, making the connection personal before getting down to the hard business is incredibly effective. We might invite their ideas, acknowledge their concerns, and maybe even share some of our own vulnerabilities and uncertainties. On the flip side, we diminish status when we rush straight into business mode, dismiss their suggestions, or perhaps worst of all, dictate to people how they should feel. Treating people as the problem, rather than as capable partners in solving a mutual problem, immediately triggers that deeply uncomfortable feeling of tribal rejection.
To build a strong sense of control, we might focus on giving people the space to make independent choices. We can invite them to be active problem solvers. And, importantly, if we ask them a question hoping for a yes, we might also need to be fully willing to accept them answering no. We diminish their control when we remove their choices, micromanage their day-to-day problems, or make unreasonable demands without providing the actual resources they need to succeed. Knowing all this fascinating stuff about the brain, how might we adjust our very choice of words to foster real collaboration?
A recurring pattern in all of this is that making bold, definitive statements often acts as a direct affront to someone's status, where it feels like a removal of their control. It triggers that highly emotional red brain pushback we talked about. On the flip side, being asked a question is an invitation. It promotes autonomy. It prompts us to slow down, take a breath, and use our objective, blue brain.
This brings us to a highly effective rule of thumb. Ask, don't tell. By inviting perspectives rather than just handing out instructions, we empower the people around us. However, we should consider this vital qualification. How might we ensure our questions are framed with genuine positive intent and curiosity? Because if questions are used merely to catch someone out or gather ammunition, they become barbed spears. They trigger defense mechanisms just as fast as a blunt statement would. We might choose to reserve telling only for those very rare moments when crystal clear boundaries are absolutely essential. Otherwise, just imagine what happens when we lead with genuine inquiry.
The concepts and principles we've explored today apply across so many different contexts. In upcoming Blue Bus Learning Bites, we'll actually be taking deep dives into how we might apply this exact framework to specific leadership challenges. We'll explore things like addressing performance issues, leading teams through significant change, and coaching to build real capability within our organizations.
As we wrap up this explainer, I'd love to leave you with a bit of an invitation. The next time you find yourself stepping into a moment that matters, whether that's a highly planned meeting or just a casual, unplanned encounter in the hallway, how might that conversation transform if you pause just for a single second to consider the deep, biological needs for certainty, status, and control of the person sitting across from you?